one of the key recommendations, even though the dollar is losing all of its purchasing power value, there's only 3 cents left officially, it's still preserve your principal. You go and get it out now, because what they've talked about is putting a chip in the new cash. They can't take cash away that abruptly because it's still used in too many transactions that we would know there was a change, right? They don't want us to know there's a change, but they could put a chip, and will put a chip in the new bills so that when they take us to negative rates, that cash responds the same way. So now you go to use that cash, and because of that chip, it shows, it's really only, it might be $1 bill, but it's only worth 55 cents or 25 cents, or depending upon how low they push the interest rates. So there's no getting away with it. When you take it out, when you deposit it, fees. And when you go to the retail store, one of the examples that they actually used, they did a great job at getting a lot of businesses not to want cash. You go to Starbucks, you want a cup of coffee. If you use a debit card or a credit card, it's $5.
Sure.
And there's fees in there, right? If you use cash, it's $6. So what are you probably going to do? Use your debit or credit card. And all those fees flow to the banks because the banks are totally too big to fail. But that's transitioning too. It's just fascinating watching all of this. Central banks are between a rock and a hard place. I don't think what happened in March of 2020 was a coincidence either, because of what was already happening in the markets breakdown. So yes, I'm taking that very seriously. Well, I can tell you where I am looking, and I'm doing what the wealthy do. So gold and silver are the monetary metals. Primary is gold, secondary is silver. Those are the only two assets that I see out there that are severely undervalued. And my personal preference is always to have the lion's share of my wealth in an undervalued asset that is in a long-term positive trend, and the least amount of my wealth in an overvalued asset or instrument that's in a long-term negative trend. So I'm very patient. To tell you the truth, I'm very patient. I identify where we are, and then I like to sleep at night. I am not a short-term trader, so I'm not looking for anything short-term. I'm looking to make sure that I can take care of, actually, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, more about my children and my grandchildren than about me, because I'm 67. So, I'll probably be around another 33 years or so, because I think I'm going to make it to be 100. But, I just accumulate what the wealthy accumulate, and definitely mostly gold and silver. The big experiment is up until they installed the Federal Reserve in 1913, then wars lasted a certain period of time and central banks had a certain level of charter where they would then go away too, because it always ended up in hyperinflation. And this was the first time, though, because they never really tried to control inflation. It was just kind of a phenomenon that happened because they printed so much money to fund the war, etc. But when they installed the central bank, the big experiment was in them attempting to control the rate and speed of inflation by interest rates. That's really, I love how they always say we have the tools, but they never really explain what those tools are. They don't have the tools because we're anchored at zero.